Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely fascinating. We're going to look at how a 24-year FBI hostage negotiator takes his extreme, high-stakes tactics and translates them directly into everyday tools for CEOs and executives. We're talking about the strategies of Chris Voss. We're going to decode how literal life-or-death communication skills can fundamentally change the way you operate in the boardroom.
Now check out this quote. Voss's core thesis here is just brilliant. He argues that negotiations are won or lost in the mind, way before the terms, the percentages, or the dollar amounts are ever even spoken out loud. It's really all about the underlying psychology. Honestly, if you aren't managing the emotional undercurrents of the conversation, that giant spreadsheet sitting in front of you, it's pretty much useless.
Think about the trap the desperate CEO falls into. You know the type, right? Their tone is anxious, they rush to fill every single silence because it makes them super uncomfortable, and their questions just come off as defensive. By doing this, they are literally giving away all their leverage before the price even comes up. Now contrast that with a trained, calm negotiator. They stay entirely in control, they use strategic silence to their advantage, and they focus completely on collaborative problem solving.
So, here is our master roadmap. We've got 7 negotiation secrets every CEO needs to know, adapted right from Voss's framework. But look, instead of just rattling off a list, we're actually going to decode these tactics by grouping them by their psychological intent. This way, you can really internalize them. Taking this deeper dive gives us the time we need to understand the real mechanics at play before you walk into your next big meeting.
All right, Section 1, the power of silence, controlling yourself first.
This starts with what's honestly the hardest tactic for high performers to master, 10 seconds. This is your brand new golden rule. After you clearly state your position, say, you look them right in the eye and say, our valuation is $50 million, you have to completely stop talking, you go totally silent, and you slowly count to 10 in your head. So why exactly do we do this? Well, it's because the first person to speak after stating terms usually loses the negotiating power. Most people just panic in silence. They feel this overwhelming, itching urge to fill the void with better offers or rambling justifications. But the pressure of this strategic silence, that does the heavy lifting that most executives try to force with words. So state your terms, let the silence sit, and make them speak first.
Moving on to Section 2, diffuse fears and objections. Disarming the opponent.
Once you've mastered controlling your own urge to speak, you've got to take control of their internal narrative. And you do this by tackling their negativity head-on in 3 distinct steps. First, name their biggest worry. Second, list their negative assumptions up front. And third, confirm their concerns. By proactively voicing their fears before they even get a chance to open their mouths, you drop their defenses immediately. You're basically taking their ammunition away before the battle even starts.
Just imagine the difference here. Hiding from fear is crossing your fingers and hoping they don't notice your flaws. Like, say, a high cash burn rate. But naming the fear? That's stepping right into the firing line. You literally look at them and say, you probably think we're just another tech startup that overpromises, burns cash, and disappears. Or if it's an acquisition, you might say, you're probably terrified this deal is going to completely gut your company culture. Taking this approach, actually naming the fear, takes those weapons right off the table and builds instant, undeniable credibility.
The absolutely crucial point here is to paraphrase their position, their fears, and their constraints so incredibly accurately that they look at you and reply with 2 magic words. That's right. Notice I didn't say you're right, because you're right is usually just a polite way to dismiss someone and get them to shut up. You want them to say, that's right. Getting that exact phrase creates the deep psychological agreement you need to get momentum and move the deal forward.
Okay, Section 3. Embrace the word no. Counterintuitive safety. We're going to completely flip how you view a word that most salespeople and executives are literally terrified of hearing. So why is yes actually the most dangerous word in negotiation? Think about your own past negotiations for a second. Chasing a really early, artificial yes often just makes the other side feel cornered or trapped. Half the time, they might just be saying yes to get you to stop talking, with absolutely 0 real commitment behind it.
And that brings us to a really profound redefinition of the word no. Counterintuitively, hearing a no early on actually signals safety to the other side. It makes them feel like they're the ones in control, like they're setting the boundaries. The true, honest conversation, the actual negotiation, that only really kicks off after they've been allowed to safely say no. Because of this dynamic, you should actually frame your questions to trigger protective no responses on purpose. If someone is dodging your emails, instead of asking, "Can we talk?" you want to trigger that protective no. Ask them something like, "Have you given up on making this partnership work this quarter?" Instantly, their reflex is going to be, "No, I haven't given up. We've just been incredibly busy." See how that works? Asking a targeted question designed to get a no puts them right in the driver's seat, while you are the one subtly steering the route.
That leads us to Section 4, Guide with Mirrors and Questions, the Mechanics of Dialogue.
Now we're getting into the actual mechanics of how you should be speaking. This is a massive paradigm shift. You absolutely must replace every single why question with a how or what question. Why naturally makes people super defensive, right? It feels like an accusation. But how and what? Those words make them solve your problems while making them think they are entirely in control. For example, instead of demanding, "Why is your budget so low?" you pivot and ask, "How do you see us moving forward with these budget constraints?" Boom. You've just turned an accusation into instant collaboration.
Alongside those how and what questions, you can also use this brilliant little tactic called mirroring. It's actually really simple. You just repeat their last 2 to 3 words, use an upward inflection, and effectively turn their statement into a question. So if they say, "The timeline is too aggressive," you simply reply, "Too aggressive?" It works like magic because people love hearing their own words. When you mirror them, they will naturally elaborate, they'll keep talking, and they'll reveal their true underlying priorities without you ever having to pry.
Finally, Section 5, Psychology Before the Numbers, Controlling the Room.
Bringing it all together, there is a really clear pattern running across all 7 of these techniques we've explored today. The core philosophy is incredibly simple. Control the room, and the terms will follow. Lose control of the room, and you've lost the deal before you even start. Whether you're an FBI agent facing off against terrorists in a hostage situation, or a CEO sitting across from an aggressive corporate acquisition board, the rule is exactly the same. If you lose control of the psychological environment, if you show desperation, if you talk way too much, or if you make them defensive, you have lost the deal.
I'm going to leave you with a final, provocative question to really challenge how you prepare for your next high-stakes meeting. Will you just argue the numbers, or will you control the room? Because as we've learned today, the real battle, the true negotiation, is won in the mind long, long before that spreadsheet is ever opened. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly, highly recommend practicing at least one of these tactics in your very next meeting. Catch you next time.